Jesus knew that his hour had come to pass from this world to the Father. He loved his own in the world, and he loved them to the end. The devil had already induced Judas, son of Simon the Iscariot, to hand him over. So during the supper, fully aware that the Father had put everything into his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God, he rose from supper and took off his outer garments. He took a towel and tied it around his waist. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and dry them with the towel around his waist. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Master, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus answered and said to him, What I am doing you do not now understand, but you will understand later." Peter said to him, "You will never wash my feet." And Jesus answered him, "Unless I wash you, you will have no inheritance with me." And Simon Peter said to him, "Master, then not only my feet, but my hands and my head as well." And Jesus said to him, "Whoever has bathed has no need except to have his feet washed, for he is clean all over. So you are clean, but not all." For he knew who would betray him. For this reason he said, "Not all of you are clean." So when he had washed their feet and put his garment back on and reclined at table again, he said to them, "Do you realize what I have done for you? You call me teacher and master, and rightly so, for indeed I am. If I, therefore, the master and teacher, have washed your feet, you ought to wash one another's feet. I have given you a model to follow, so that as I have done for you, you should also do." The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus. Please be seated. Today, on Holy Thursday, the Church celebrates the institution of the priesthood and the Eucharist. And typically, priests all throughout the world celebrate this day as their feast day, the institution of the priesthood. And of course, this day, which is so different than any other day, usually involves the washing of feet. The priest washes the feet of his parishioners, a sign of what Jesus has called us to in this very gospel. Today, perhaps we can think about what is a priest, because when we think about this day, we think about the sacramental priesthood or the ministerial priesthood. And what is important for us to know about a priest is one who offers sacrifice. This is what makes a priest different than a minister or different than a preacher, right? A preacher preaches the gospel. A minister takes care of one's needs, but a priest does something which is unique, offering a sacrifice. And a Christian priest is even more unique because the sacrifice that the Christian priest offers is himself, because Christ is the priest and the victim. Today, perhaps, we do not need to meditate so much on the sacramental priesthood. Perhaps we can meditate a little more on the priesthood of the laity. Because I am a priest by virtue of my ordination, but I first became a priest because I was baptized and I became a Christian. And this is what makes me a saint. This is what calls me to sanctity, the universal call to holiness, that I am called to be holy, to be set apart. And I think about this universal call to holiness and the basic vocation of every Christian to priesthood, today especially. And I think about that universal call and that priesthood of the faithful, particularly in those who are with us this evening. Tonight, we have my father. He gave me life. He raised me as a child. He was a cop. He had to work 2 jobs and went to school at night, made a lot of sacrifices for his family. This is what it is to lay down your life. Tonight, we have with us a police captain. When police calls come in, no matter what the circumstances are, the police are there. And generally, the circumstances are not particularly pleasant. People's tensions are high. Their heart is pumping. You know what? When the police arrive, people are scared, but you know who's also scared? The police. And you think, particularly in these days, when so many policemen are sick, and you think about how each day you go out and have such intimate contact with people under enormously stressful circumstances, particularly stressed at this moment, pouring oneself out for another. This evening, we have a firefighter. And you think about, for us, how living in the city, how eerie it is at night here in Brooklyn when you're so used to hearing so many different sounds. But the only sound you hear is the sound of a siren, an ambulance, or a fire truck, which you know is going to attend to someone in need. And you take a look at the young fireman who is here, or the firefighters who are across the street. And each day they come to our houses, not knowing the conditions which we are suffering from, to minister to us in our need, knowing that they go home to their family at night, bringing what they found in the streets of our city into their home. Next to the firefighter was a seat for an EMS worker, our ambulance drivers, who are working so many hours and confronting all the different circumstances of illness in our city, and even to have to revive life on the streets of our city in order not to take patients who are too sick to go to the hospital. You think of a doctor, young, newly married, looking to begin a life which is a life of healing, but who each day walks out of his apartment and into an office to see people in very intimate circumstances and thinks to himself, will I get sick today? Perhaps even planning that, knowing I will get sick, and how am I to handle the fact that I am going to get sick? Next to him, a nurse, a mother, a daughter, a sister who lost her own sister to the coronavirus just a few days ago. And you think about the nurses who are the ones who attend most intimately to us in our illness. For the doctor seeks to cure us, but it is the nurse who soothes us and calms us and lets us know that we are not alone when we feel how alone we are. And the social worker, because we are so intimately connected with one another, that when we suffer and when life hits terrible bumps along the road, it is the person who is our neighbor, who is our friend, who is to help us through those difficult moments, to navigate the complexities, the emotional challenges that these times have brought for us. When I think about the priesthood and the models of the priesthood tonight, I think of these people who sit before you, because they are really the priest in our midst, aren't they? They make a sacrifice, and the sacrifice is themselves. And they do that for you and for me. And that is what the gospel mandates. Pope Francis speaks to us today about the saint next door. When I was asking people to come this evening, one person said to me, who is very good, said, I cannot because I am a very big sinner. I was shocked and said to this person, we are all very big sinners. To be a saint does not mean that you have not fallen. To be a saint means that despite the fact that you have fallen, you get up. Peter proves that to us in the gospel today. So, brothers and sisters, today we come to celebrate the institution of the priesthood. We celebrate that institution of the priesthood because it is through the priest that we receive Holy Communion. And today, you who are watching TV cannot go to Holy Communion. And so that seat is empty for you. Because you see, beside the two priests who are here, they pour themselves out for you as well. And you are in communion with them each day as they have been celebrating the Mass, even though they cannot see your face in front of them. In faith, you are with them on Calvary as the cross is being lifted high, as Christ's blood is pouring forth. And between the two priests is the sacristan, someone who you very rarely see, but who has been critical in order for the Masses to continue. Because each day the chalices all have to be purified, the vessels all have to be sanitized, all the vestments have to be cleaned, everything has to be prepared so that we can be safe as we minister to you. You see, it is easy for shepherds to be afraid to get sick from their sheep. But Jesus makes very clear to us that the shepherd cannot be afraid of the sheep. Pope Francis, in his meditation this past week, in a course of an interview he gave with Austin Ivory to the Love the London tablet, he speaks about a book called The Betrothed, and particularly about how the heroism of the Capuchin friars who ministered to those who were sick during the plague in Milan in the late 17th century. Proximity. For us, we cannot be proximate physically. Today, I wished that we could wash the feet of these Christians, the saint next door. But you know, for people of faith, we must use our imagination. You know, you cannot be a person of faith if you do not have imagination. You must be able to see possibilities. And today, perhaps we can use our imagination to see that the people who sit before us are washing our feet every single day. Every moment of day, they're washing our feet. And today, as you look at them, it is for them to know and for their colleagues to know that you wash their feet. And this is how we are in communion with one another, brothers and sisters. Because though we may not be able to receive communion, we can be in communion. And we are in communion by our prayers. And so as we begin this sacred Triduum, let us call to mind our prayers for one another. As the Pope said, maybe this time for us of cloistering or quarantine can become cloistering, where we can pray a little more and be mindful of one another. Bishop DiMarzio asked that the bells ring throughout the diocese at 3 p.m. These are called bells of hope. Sometimes when a person hears the bell ring, they think, for whom the bell tolled? The bell tolls for me. And that can be frightening. The bell is a bell of hope because it reminds the person who is suffering that they do not suffer alone, that you and I are united with them. And even if they be in a hospital room all by themselves, they are not alone, because we know that the Spirit transcends the physical. And as sure enough as we know that this empty church is actually filled with all the angels and saints and with you, so too we know that at the bedside of the sick, the angels and saints are interceding. We know that because we trust in the word that God has offered. For so many years ago, when Moses led the people of Israel out of slavery, they painted blood of lambs on their doorposts so no evil or harm could touch them. And for you and me, it is the blood of the Lamb which is on our lips, so that, yes, we may suffer. Yes, there may be difficulty, which is a part of life. But that is not the last word. The last word comes on Sunday, when we peer into the tomb and we ask with Mary, "Where is my Lord? Where have you laid him?" And hear back his response, "I am." May God bless you.